Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, and it's my delight to once again continue our journey through jewellery making techniques. And we're going into another jeweller's workshop somewhere around Australia. And this week we have the delight of seeing the lovely Penny in Geraldton. Welcome, Penny.
Hi, everybody.
Great to have you back, Penny, for your third occasion, which is fantastic. And it's pretty warm over there in sunny Geraldton, I believe.
Yes, very warm, although this week's been a bit cooler. The last couple of weeks have been very hot, but yes. Or I think, below 30 today, so that's good.
And today, Penny, we're going to be demonstrating the technique of Keum-Boo.
Yes, correct.
Yes. Now, for those who don't know what Keum-Boo is, would you like to describe what Keum-Boo is?
Yes, I've made myself some notes, so bear with me because I'm kind of reading off the notes as well. But Keum-Boo is an ancient Korean technique where sheets of 24 karat gold is attached to fine silver through a diffusion bond. So it's different to plating. It's not, it's the two metals are actually bonded together rather than being plated together. So it's a little bit more durable than plating. It's definitely a permanent bond. So I'll just go through, and in Korean, Keum-Boo actually means attached gold. So that's where it comes from. It's as I say, it's an ancient technique that's been used for many, many years. And it's a really lovely process that you can use in your jewelry to just add a little bit of gold to your work at an affordable way for yourself, I guess, but just maybe pimping up your jewelry just a little bit. So some of the things that we need to do Keum-Boo, there's a range of tools, and of course you need your metal. So I'm using sterling silver, but your sterling silver must be prepared to, so that it becomes fine silver, pulling out the fine silver to the top, or the pure silver to the top, reducing all the copper, removing all the copper through a method called depletion. And I'll explain that in a second. And of course, you'll need your gold as well. Now, the gold is 24 karat. It's important that you use 24 karat gold. And your gold's rolled out to a foil consistency. You can buy it already pre-rolled. I'm not sure if you're able to see there, but it's like aluminium foil. It's quite thin. We want to try not to touch it very much if we can. We don't want any oils from your fingers or anything, any dirt or anything on both the metals, the silver or the foil. So best to kind of, I'm using some tracing paper, like the thick kind of tracing paper. Not only is it keeping it clean, but I can see the gold through there, so I can use the tracing paper later when I want to cut it out or trace on it, draw on it for whatever design I'm going to put onto my metal. Some of the other things that you'll need, I've got a soft brass wire brush, a range of burnishes. An agate burnisher is really helpful. It doesn't get quite as hot, and it also doesn't scratch or tear the gold leaf as much. But a range of other burnishes, that one's a bit hard to see on camera, but it's got a little ball on the end. That one's got a point and a sort of scoop on the end. I've got, lots of other little burnishes in different shapes and sizes. Some tweezers, some steel tweezers, some sharp as you can scissors. I've got my steel block there. I've also got some methylated spirits to keep everything as clean as I can. I've got a dish of methylated spirit. I've got my silver just sitting in that dish at the moment. And most importantly, you'll need a hot plate. The hot plates that I went looking for nowadays no longer have a coil, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. This is just a ceramic top, so I can just pop my silver straight on. If you prefer, you can put a little piece of metal over the top of that and place your metal on top of that. But I think with the ceramic top, you don't need to worry too much about that. So if I show you some examples of pieces that I've made previously using some Keum-Boo, because you can also, is that clear enough?
Yeah, we can see that. Yep.
So I've just kept that fairly simple, just a couple of little geometrical sort of elongated triangles on some earrings that I also textured. Just once the gold is on, you can texture it just as you would normally, but you must make sure you've got good fusion between metals to do it. This one I've oxidized, a bit harder to see, but the just to make a difference between the gold and the silver. And this one here, another little pair of earrings, was another piece that I rolled out once I got the gold on the silver. I started to do some little pieces on a ring yesterday. Oh, that's a bit hard to see. Doing the ring on the hot plate is a little tricky because you need the metal to be quite hot, and sort of sitting the ring on the hot plate was quite difficult. You can attach the gold using a flame. I'm not very familiar with that process, and you have to be really careful that you don't melt the gold. So I think when we're first starting out, you can still get great effects and looks using the hot plate. So to prepare your silver, as I was saying, it needs to be fine silver. We need the pure silver to be raised to the surface of the sterling silver. You can buy some fine silver without having to go through the process of changing a sterling silver. But if you only have sterling silver in hands, then it's quite easy to bring that pure silver to the surface. As I said, that's a process called depletion. So it is quite a lengthy process, but it's nothing that we don't already do in our jewelry making. So your sterling silver, you'll simply just use your torch to anneal the metal, bringing it just to that normal sort of annealed look that you would when you're heating up your piece of metal to get ready to use it. Quench it, and then pop it into your pickle pot. Once it's out of the pickle pot, you're going to use your wire brush, and I've got like a dish of water with just a couple of drops of washing up detergent in it. Your wire brush needs to be wet to use it, otherwise the burnishing won't, you'll break off bristles and brass into silver, and we want to keep it so that we're burnishing off that anything that's on the surface rather than damaging the metal or brush. Once you've burnished the silver, you'll do that whole process again. You may need to do that process 3, 5, maybe even 7 times until your metal is looking white. So once, I'll just get out a piece that I've done here. The sterling silver, it almost won't, it's a bit hard to see how white it is there on that. So when you anneal the silver up to it's probably more like 5 to 7 times, and you are not getting any oxidization anymore. You're not getting any dark colors on your metal anymore. It means that all the copper's been removed, that the fine silver is now to the top, and that gives the gold leaf something to bond to. It's almost like they interlock, the silver and the gold. The gold, what can I tell you about the gold? So you can use any of your scrap 24 karat gold that you may have, or you can purchase some 24 karat gold and then roll it out using your rolling mill. You can purchase foil already in the thickness that we need. And the thickness is really a bit personal, but we don't want the leaf sort of scenario that you might see people use in cooking. It's too fine, it's too, it sticks to the tweezers. You need at least a little bit, like I was showing you with the foil before. It's almost like aluminium foil. So to prepare your gold, you would melt it down. If it was, scrap, make a bullion or, something that you can work through the rolling mill. Roll the gold right down until the rollers are touching. They can't go any further. You'll need to anneal your gold in between, just like if we were rolling out sterling silver, it will work harden. At that point, it's still not thin enough. So then you're going to use 2 pieces of copper that you'll have annealed and cleaned up. Make sure that you do clean up and even use the burnishing brush on the copper, so that we don't get any of that copper oxidization fusing into the gold, and continue rolling out the gold between the 2 pieces of copper in your rolling mill until you reach that foil-like thinness or consistency of your gold. Once both of those, your metal, your sterling silver is in fine silver, or the fine silver's to the top, or the pure silver's to the top, and your gold is at the right thickness, we can then start going through the process of fusing the 2 metals together. So the gold, because it's so thin, you can tear, cut, you can trace a little picture onto the tracing paper and then cut that out to fuse onto your metal. Another little handy thing you can use are these paper punches that'll just punch out a shape in your gold. So I'm going to put a little one of those stamps onto just a disc of silver today, so that, you know, potentially I could use it for earrings or pendant or anything like that. But the gold can be used in so many different ways. Maybe you may want to cover a whole section of a piece that you're working on. Maybe you just want to randomly put little pieces like I did on the ring. There's so many things that you can do. And once you know the process, it really just comes down to practice, experimenting, and seeing where you want to add little pieces of gold to make accents on your piece, on your jewelry. It's really important that everything is super clean. The gold and the silver, they don't like dirt. Keum-Boo will not work if there's any sort of dirt, oils, or anything like that. So if you are struggling to get the two metals to bond, then you need to think about, you know, is there something that's not as clean as what it could be? It may just be simply that you remove both pieces, let them cool, and then pop them in some methylated spirits to bring them back to nice and clean. So including all of your tools that you're going to be using. It can be quite handy to have a jar of water by hand as well to cool the instruments as we use them on the burner. The burner, it's a bit hard to judge. You can get gadgets to work out your temperature, and you can also use a toothpick to just, like a wooden toothpick, on the hot plate, and as that starts to just, the surface of the wood starts to go a little bit black, then you know that you're at the right temperature. I've kind of just been experimenting with mine. This is a new burner for me, so I've just been experimenting with the heat. I can soon tell if the gold is not starting to bond to the silver. I know I maybe need a little bit more heat on my metals. Okay, so I'm going to just going to dip my tweezers into the methylated spirits. I've got a little disc right here, just a little round piece of silver. I've already turned that in, brought all the pure silver to the top. Just going to dry that off a little bit. And I'm just going to pop that little piece of silver, just cranking up the heat a little more, onto my hot plate. I'm going to leave it there to get a little warm before I go attaching or placing any gold. Have a bit of an idea of what it is that you want to do, where you want to put the piece, because once it starts to bond, it's stuck to your silver. There's no sort of going back. So I'm going to pick up the little piece of gold that I cut out the other day using my paper stamp.
So Penny, how long does it take to get that burner up to the temperature you want it?
It's not that long. I mean, I've turned it on before we started, but it actually has one of those automatic kind of thermostats, so it's actually blowing on and off at me. So I'm kind of just keep tweaking it to make sure that it stays not quite warm. I can see that the hot plate is red, and the metal's looking quite warm. That's the little piece of gold that I cut out from the using the stamp. So I'm just going to carefully place that onto the silver. So in the position that I sort of want it, I'm just going to leave that there for a couple of seconds. So you're kind of using both hands, you know, this thing kind of skids around a little bit on you. So you may need to hold it down and sort of You want to work from the inside out so that we don't get bubbles or creases. And I can see now it's just starting to bond to that metal a little. I'm just using the agate burnisher, and I'm just gently rubbing the gold onto the silver.
And is your shape staying intact, Penny?
Yes, yeah, it is, yep.
Mm.
Yeah, you've got to be careful that using the metal burnishes can tear or scratch the foil. So you do need to be gentle but firm at the same time, because we do need to rub that the metal onto the silver. And you want to make sure that you've got nothing lifted anywhere, no little gaps. Just rubbing away. Make sure my hand gets a bit hot over the top of that hot plate.
So when do you know your bond's complete?
When you can see that there's nothing lifted anywhere, they're quite warm. I'm just going to put them there. Use my tweezers now. I like to take it off because there's no reason why you can't take it off. Have a little look, pop it back on, try again. If I pop it onto the steel plate, I can use the burnisher again here on the steel plate while it's still hot. And I'm just rubbing the gold to push it down to bond it, to connect it to the silver. And as I said, once you've got a really good bond between the silver and the gold, there's no reason why you can't run that piece through the rolling mill to give it texture, or use a ball peen hammer to texturize the metal. Once the two pieces are bonded together, then they won't lift or come off. You can pop it into the tumbler. You can solder, but you have to be really, really careful, obviously, because if I add heat, there's no reason why that can't lift off or right down now. I'll use the tweezers so my fingers aren't in the way.
Oh, it's good. Excellent.
So now that's just, and it's nice and flat. Like you could use your little your loop to make sure that there's nowhere that's lifted or needs any pushing or anything, rubbing down. If you needed to, you could pop it back on. If you saw anything there that was not quite right, go back, use your other tools. I do like the agate a lot more than some of the other steel burnishes, just because it's a little more gentle. And it doesn't leave as many marks on the metal or the gold. And then you can, now just treat this as you would use any of your tools on your flex shaft. Pop it in the tumbler.
So Penny, I'll just take this opportunity of inviting people, if they've got any questions or comments, to please come forward with those in the comments on Facebook. That'd be great.
I just take that off. Then pop it on that steel block again and just give it another little rub, make sure. There's loads and loads of those steel, the paper punches out there. You can get all sorts of different shapes that, adds a little bit more fun. I've also, I used some steel stamps and stamped into the metal and then popped the gold foil over the top of the stamp just to highlight the stamp a little more.
Okay.
So that I can't see anything there that's lifted or anything now. So I could, just using my brass brush, just popped it in a little bit of water. That has just a tiny little bit of just general household dishwashing liquid in there. And if I just give it a little bit of a rub. You can see that there.
We can. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
beautiful.
That pretty much is the technique. And like I say, then it's really up to you to just experiment with that technique. And that's another little one. Yeah, I just added like a little slash of gold across the little oval that I would turn into an earring. Like you can dome that now. You can texturize that now. Every little piece is valuable. You know, there's always little shapes that you can see, and like that's what I was using with the ring. They were just little leftover torn pieces that I popped onto the ring randomly.
Penny, can you just show that to the other camera just to see what that's like over there? If you can do it without burning yourself.
Oh, I did. I just got like. Is that any better?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Thank
you.
The little. So that's just the little stamp that I did.
Excellent. So if anyone out there has tried Keum-Boo for themselves in the past, let us know what objects you did and how you did it. If you've got any questions for Penny, that would be great. It certainly is a nice way to enhance your jewellery, that's for sure.
Yes. Did you want me to do another little demo on something else, or like I was saying, the gold leaf, you can see there where I stamped straight through the tracing paper.
Yeah.
So, and even while you're anything that you draw on here, you know, I would probably suggest that you cut the gold leaf while it's in the tracing paper, and keep it contained that way. And you know, I've got another little tray here that I've just got all my little bits in there that I did just dip the little piece that I'd cut out in the methylated spirits just to make sure that it's clean. It's really important that everything is as clean as it can possibly be, otherwise it won't bond, it won't fuse.
So yeah, did that gold leaf that you've got, did you roll that yourself or did you buy it like that?
No, I didn't roll it myself. I did purchase that. And the thickness can be entirely up to you. Some people like to keep it a little thicker so that there's a little bit more definition to it. But you really don't want it too thin. Like, I know that's not a very good description as to what you should, how thin it should be. But if it's too thin, it just flies around and you can't get it to into position properly. And I found some of the other leaf with even sticking to the tweezers. You know, you open up that leaf and it sort of almost blows away. So I've found that this particular thickness that is here, which is like you can hear it as you wobble it, I guess. There's a good way to, it's that kind of tin foil, aluminium foil thickness.
Now, Penny, we do have a number of comments and questions, so I'll run through those for you. So Anneal came in late. She was asking what was being made, and if you just like to just explain what you were doing with that little piece you just did before.
Yeah, I think probably what I will do with this little piece, I must admit the little paper stamps, I put a call out to all my scrapbooking friends and asked if they had any interesting stamps, because all I had was if they had any interesting stamps, because all I had was just your standard paper circle punch. And I thought, so that everybody came forward for me, and I've got everything now from little feet to people. That I really liked that one that I actually fused. So I will turn that little disc into an earring. But like I was saying, that was a ring that I was working on yesterday, just playing, almost trying to look like confetti. So the process is called Keum-Boo, which is an ancient Korean technique, bonding 24 karat gold foil to fine silver. If you don't have fine silver, you've only got sterling silver. It's an easy process to change your sterling silver into fine silver. And what I did yesterday was actually I did a big piece of sterling silver. So now I have a nice piece of fine silver ready to do anything that I want to do with. But if you were making a piece of jewelry that was in sterling silver, and you want to treat this almost a bit like if you were setting a stone and it's the last thing that you want to do. So make sure that your piece is, all the components are soldered on, it's to completion. It's one of those last things that you want to do. This hot plate process is best for flat items. It was a little tricky, I must admit, doing it on the ring. But basically, Keum-Boo is attaching gold foil to fine silver to add a little pop, some accents of gold to your jewelry, to just give your jewelry a little bit more of a bling. And, you know, I think gold and silver are a lovely combination. You can
indeed. Sorry to interrupt, Penny. I do have some more questions here. So Liz has asked, do you need to give specific care directions to customers for these pieces?
Yes, you know, it's bonded. It's not going to just rub off. It is a different process to plating. And I would think over many, many years, potentially that gold, because it is so thin, would rub off your piece, but not like plating does. Plating, you know, I find wears off very quickly. This is a far more permanent process, I guess. So there's no real super specific special directions that you'd need to give to your customers. You know, care to be taken. It can still go into an ultrasonic to be cleaned. A soft toothbrush with some washing up detergent and water you could also use to clean the piece as well, like a baby's toothbrush, really super soft. So yeah, I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary that we would have to give customers, you know, super special instructions. I hope that makes it clear.
Yep, thank you. And along that line, Tony asked about how durable the bond is specifically for rings, because they obviously get knocked around a lot. So, yeah, what's your thoughts there?
Look, I think that the same kind of thing, you know, it is, as I say, it is a permanent bond, but it is only a thin layer of gold that's been bonded to silver. So I feel fairly confident that you would get a very extended period of time with your gold on your piece of metal without too much trauma at all.
Yep, thank you. And Wayne asks, how large a piece can you do?
You can do, you know, I guess anything that'll fit onto your hot plate. And you can keep tearing or cutting little pieces, and you can cover a whole piece of sterling silver, like a larger piece that you may be working on in your gold leaf. You just keep adding little pieces, you know, or a piece that's the size of your pendant or whatever you're working on. I don't think that there's any real limit on what sort of size other than what's on your hot plate, I guess. And as I say, there is a method to do it using the torch. It's just one that I've not used myself personally. And I just think only because torch control, I think you need a really soft flame. If you were fusing to a ring or something, then perhaps it may be easier to do it using a torch. But I mean, if we think back to when, many years ago, the Koreans using this process certainly didn't have a hot plate. So, they would have been using some other form of flame or heat method to get that gold to bond to the silver. But you can definitely cover a whole piece of sterling silver, and then, and it doesn't have to be, maybe you fuse onto a plate and then go make your piece from there. But it should really be the thing that you do close to finish last. So, because as I say, you can solder, but you do have to be really, really careful. Definitely away from wherever you place the gold. Don't be trying to solder next to the gold or anything like that.
No worries. Thank you very much, Penny. And Tracy has just asked, can you use pre-made gold leaf, or do you recommend making your own? So what would your preference be? Obviously, there's a bit of work going into doing your own, isn't there?
It is a bit of work going into your own. Look, if you had scrap 24 gold and, pieces that you've been collecting for a while that are of no use in the size that they are, then I would definitely go down that road of making my own foil. I unfortunately don't have a lot of 24 karat gold scrap. It's not a metal that I work in on a regular basis. So for me, sometimes there's places where you have to find a way to get to your piece quicker, like it's a time factor. So I would be buying my foil rather than rolling my own foil, but that's just a personal choice. And because I don't have access to a scrap 24 karat, but if you had the gold, then I would probably definitely go through that rolling process. It's a bit like the fine silver. I could buy some fine silver, but it didn't really take me that long yesterday afternoon to just quickly take all that oxidization out, remove all the copper, bring that pure silver to the top, and I had some fine silver there ready to go. So I think you have to weigh up what's going to work best for you, where your time management is.
No worries. And a comment from Kylie. She's asked if there's any recommendations for what compounds to use or avoid when polishing. So that's your finished piece.
Your finished piece? Yeah, as long as you're and using that brass brush, just as I did to finish off that little disc, is a really good way and your loop to check, is a really good way to check whether you've got a really good bond or connection. And like I said, if you saw anything that was not quite down as flat or bonded as well as you would like to the silver, just pop it straight back on the plate and keep rubbing, giving it a good rub. You can throw it straight into the tumbler depending upon the piece. You can use your flex shaft with I really love these little wheels, the 3M wheels. So you could use those. You can polish it just using your standard calico mop and some polishing compound. I guess you need to take into consideration the thickness of your foil as well before you go too aggressively at polishing or anything. But there's no reason why you can't use some of the polishing compounds that you would use to finish a piece, or any of the little 3M wheels. The burnishing brush or the brass brush then just brought it up quite nice. And I threw pieces in the tumbler the other day without any problem as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Penny. And Deborah has asked, can you use other metals like brass or copper foil?
No, I believe it has to be the 24 karat gold. You can fuse it to other metals, but I didn't look into the process. I did come across some other people that were fusing to copper and to steel, but I'm not sure the process is with those metals, because one of the biggest factors or issues when we're trying to fuse the 24 karat gold to the sterling silver is that there's no oxidization and that there's no copper in place there. So I'm not 100% sure on how we fuse to other metals, but it's always the 24 karat leaf to something else, and predominantly the finer silver.
No worries. Okay. Thank you very much for your answer, Penny, and your question, Deborah. So I think, unless there's any other comments or questions, we'll wrap it up. You've done a really good coverage of that, Penny, and I'm sure you've enthused people to give it a try.
Yeah, it's certainly a fun process, and I don't think that there's too many wrongs or rights. Like, I think it's an opportunity to be a little bit more, just use random shapes and highlight different areas in your jewelry. And I think it's really nice just to pop a little bit of gold on our jewelry sometimes. And, I'm certainly not a high-end jeweler, but, it's nice to be able to say to my customers that this piece has 24 karat gold in it, and it just makes those pieces just pop a little more. I just like that extra little bling you can offer.
Indeed. And lots of thank yous from Carol, Deborah, Kylie. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching and your enthusiasm for Penny's presentation. And Penny, we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you sometime real soon with another adventure in jewellery making. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And until next time, goodbye.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone.